Invincible has some of the most rewatched moments in superhero history, and some of them are not even the biggest fights. And today, I'm ranking every moment that broke the internet. This first one gets slept on constantly, and I won't let it in a show full of fistfights that flatten entire city blocks. One of the most searched, most rewatched things in the entire series is two people talking, Mark and Eve, the fallout from a lie, the weight of someone choosing to be a hero over being honest, and the person who loves them most finding out.
I love you, Mark. I have for a very long time, and No, don't tell me. Tell her.
By the time season 3 rolls around, we've watched Mark and Eve circle each other for years. The whole fandom wanted them together. When it finally happened, you'd think that'd be the relief moment, the payoff. And for a second, it is. But then the show does what Invincible always does. It takes the thing you wanted and shows you exactly what it costs. Here's what makes their dynamic one of the most watched things in the show. Eve isn't just his girlfriend. She's the person who calls him out when he tries to talk himself into bad decisions. She's the one who walked away from the teen team, from Rex, from the whole idea of heroism as a job, because she decided her power should actually do something real for the world. And Mark keeps secrets. He tells himself it's to protect people. But at a certain point, you have to ask, is he protecting them? Or is he just protecting himself from a hard conversation? The reason people keep coming back to their scenes isn't just the romance, it's because it feels real. Two people who love each other trying to figure out if that's enough when one of them keeps pulling away. And the writing never lets them make speeches about it. Nobody sits down and explains how they feel. It's short lines, pauses. The stuff that hurts most is the stuff that goes unsaid.
Eve, when I met you, I thought you were amazing, but you were with Rex, so I pushed those feelings down. What I felt for you never totally went away.
Jillian Jacobs and Steven Yeun carry every second of it. When Eve gets stabbed through the stomach by Conquest in the season 3 finale, while Mark watches and can't do anything, the reason that breaks you isn't just the violence, it's everything that came before it. Every moment of tension between them, every time Mark was close to being honest and backed off, every time she stood by him anyway, all of that weight lands right there.
Do you remember how we said the future version of me wasn't me? Well, the future version of you isn't you either. Whatever that was, it wasn't our future.
And the show knows exactly what it's doing. The pain she carries from that fight ends up unlocking something in her powers, pulling down mental walls that had been holding her back since she was a kid. Even the show's biggest, most violent turning points come back to these two. That's why people keep rewatching. Because it's not just a fight scene, it's an entire relationship playing out in real time. And that's just number 6. Because the next one on the list is something entirely different. This one gets talked about in a completely different way from the rest of the show, and it deserves that. Before season 2 dropped in November 2023, Amazon put out a standalone prequel episode called Invincible, Adam Eve, nearly an hour long, all about Samantha Eve Wilkins, and it was one of the best things in the whole Invincible universe. Here's why it hit so hard. In season 1, Eve is a supporting character, smart, powerful, clearly carrying more than the show has time to get into.
I don't know who you are, but it's time to go.
But her backstory, basically nothing. You know she has powers. You know her parents are cold and distant. You know she left the teen team because it felt like a waste of her time. But the why of all of it just sits there. The special blows it all open. Eve's powers didn't come from an accident. And they didn't come from genetics the way Mark's did. She was built in a lab. A government scientist named Dr. Brandyworth found a homeless pregnant woman named Polly, paid her to go through experiments that changed her amniotic fluid on a molecular level, and Eve was born from that. A weapon, designed before she ever took her first breath.
No, she's a weapon. My weapon. And it's taken me years to get her back.
The people who raised her, the cold father and the mother who never quite knew how to reach her, weren't bad people. They were just completely unprepared for what she was. And the show makes you feel that. The loneliness of being special in a house where being special is treated like a problem. The scene people watched over and over is Eve at 12 years old facing the men responsible for what was done to her and her biological mother. She doesn't attack them. She doesn't go full superhero. She gets to the edge of what her power can do. She can see every molecule around her. She knows she could rebuild these people from scratch, remake them completely, and there'd be nothing they could do about it, and she pulls back. She chooses to erase their memory of her instead.
I see it all now. Every single molecule around us. I can touch them, taste them, control them.
It's one of the most quietly painful choices any character in this show has made. She doesn't destroy the people who hurt her. She removes herself from their lives. She just disappears from their story and walks away. The look on her face when she does it tells you everything about who she's going to grow up to be. The special also locked in something the show had only hinted at. Eve's power has almost no ceiling. The block on her ability to affect living things isn't something that grew naturally. It was put there on purpose, and it's been wearing down season by season under the weight of everything she's gone through. By the time she unlocks the ability to affect organic matter in the season 3 finale, fighting Conquest with her body shutting down and the life draining out of her, it makes sense. You saw where she came from. You watched a 12-year-old girl sit with that kind of power and choose not to use it, and now you're watching that same person finally let go. That whole arc only works because of this special. That's why it lives in people's heads. Now we're getting into the fights, and this next one is important. Stay with me now. Invincible Season 4 kicks off on March 18th, 2026, and one of the first things it does is introduce a character that comic readers have been waiting on for a long time, Dinosaurus. On the surface, he looks straightforward, a man who turns into a massive prehistoric monster and causes huge amounts of destruction. Easy villain, but nothing in Invincible is ever that simple. And Dinosaurus is where that hits hardest. His argument goes like this: the world is overpopulated. It's falling apart under its own weight. Controlled destruction, the kind that clears the path for something better, the kind nobody would ever choose willingly, is the only real way forward.
You gave us what no one else could. A chance at a better future. Fewer mouths to feed.
And the show makes you sit with that. Because from a certain angle, you can see how someone could actually believe it. The fight between Mark and Dinosaurus comes early, and it's brutal, it has to be. The show needs you to understand physically how dangerous this guy is before it starts asking you to take his ideas seriously. Mark beats him. But the conversation doesn't stop there. What makes this fight one of the most talked about moments in Season 4 isn't the action itself, it's what comes after. Not because Dinosaurus makes an argument Mark can't fully shake, and that's a new kind of problem for a hero who spent 3 seasons trying to figure out where his lines actually are. The show draws a clear line back to the Angstrom-Levy situation. Mark hesitated. He tried to find a better way, and that pause caused the Invincible War. Millions of people died in 3 days while evil versions of Mark tore cities apart across the globe. Now here's someone else telling him that sometimes pain is the price of progress, and asking whether Mark's refusal to let bad things happen is itself making worse things happen. That's not a comic book question, that's a real one. And Invincible puts it in Mark's hands, with the full weight of everything he's already been through pressing down on him. The Dinosaurus fights in Season 4 aren't just action, they're arguments. And that's exactly why people keep talking about them. We're going to the top 3 now, and this is where it stops being about individual scenes and starts being about moments that actually stuck with people for a long time, starting with a fight that was set up from the very beginning. Let me paint you a picture. Mark has just survived 3 days of the Invincible War. His world spent 72 hours being torn apart by evil alternate versions of himself sent by Angstrom Levy. Major cities across the world are wrecked. Hundreds of thousands of people are dead. And Rex Splode, one of the most unexpectedly loved characters in the show, is gone. Rex died in episode 7 of season 3. He turned himself into a human bomb to take down one of the evil Invincible variants. He turned his own skeleton into an explosive and let it go off.
I've got one thing left!
And what's that?
My entire goddamn skeleton!
And the show just let him be dead. No last second save, no miracle. His girlfriend, Shrinking Ray, had just retired from being a hero. She watched him go in alone, and she carries that with her. And then before Mark can breathe, before anyone can even start to process what just happened, Conquest shows up. If you only know Conquest from season 3, you need to understand what the show itself tells you about him. Cecil Stedman, who doesn't really scare easily, tells his team that their analysts think Conquest would be Nolan Grayson in a straight fight. Conquest is voiced by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, which is already perfect casting. He has everything Nolan has physically, but none of the baggage. No love for Earth, no son, no 2 decades of human life slowly changing what he cares about. He's everything Viltrumite culture says a warrior should be. And he enjoys every second of it. He doesn't want to conquer Mark. He wants a fight worth having.
And this would be telling you how the Viltrum Empire would turn this wretched planet into a utopia. I'll tell you no such thing.
And Mark, fresh off the worst week of his life, is exactly the kind of broken, desperate opponent Conquest was built to take apart. The fight that follows is one of the best action sequences in the show. Oliver, Mark's little brother, tries to jump in and gets nearly ripped in half. Eve wakes up from her injuries, watching it on the news, and demands to help. She gets there and actually holds her own for a while. She pushes the air density around Conquest to slow him down. She lands hits that actually make him work, and then he drives his fist straight through her body. One shot. She goes down. The camera stays on her face, then it cuts to Mark's, and then Mark stops holding back. What follows is what Invincible does better than anything else in the genre.
I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how fast you are. I can see the future. You don't live to see tomorrow.
Mark doesn't get cool and focused, he gets feral. The rage that comes out of him watching Eve go down is the same thing that's been building since season 1. Since his dad told him Debbie's life meant nothing. Since the train. Since every time the people he loved got used against him by someone stronger. He has no working arms by the end. He wins with his forehead. Literally, he headbutts Conquest's face into nothing. Over and over, until there's no face left. And it takes everything left in him to do it. The reason that works, the reason it doesn't just feel like shock for the sake of it, is that you understand every second of emotion driving it. You earn this breakdown with him. Then the show does one more thing. The episode ends with Rex's funeral. Rudy, who was cloned from Rex's DNA and has lived his whole life in a body that belonged to someone else, stands up and says he's changing his name from Rudy to Rex. The only eulogy that landed was a name.
To honor my friend and everything he meant to me, I am changing my name from Rudy to Rex.
Eve tries to give a speech and falls apart. She tells Mark afterwards that Rex was the first person she ever loved, and she never got to tell him she was proud of how far he'd come, and Mark holds her. This person he almost lost 2 hours of screen time ago, and tells her he's going to be there. The Conquest fight is is already one of the most rewatched sequences in the show's history, but the 30 minutes that come after it, the grief, the quiet, the funeral, are what make it one of the best episodes of television in the last few years. This next one blew up on TikTok, because honestly it was a major moment in the show. The season 1 finale is called Where I Really Come From. Robert Kirkman wrote it himself, and it's still the thing every season since has been measured against. Here's the setup. You've spent 8 episodes watching Mark try to be a hero while basically worshiping his father. Nolan Grayson is Omni-Man, the most powerful hero on Earth, the person whose approval shaped every choice Mark ever made about who he wanted to become.
You left a girl in your room while you flew off to deal with a crisis. Good. Remember, you're not just a superhero, Mark. You're a Viltrumite.
And then you watch Nolan kill all 7 members of the original Guardians of the Globe in episode 1, by himself, without a moment of hesitation. The show let that sit on the table for 7 episodes while Mark stayed in the dark. Then in episode 7, Nolan killed the Immortal on live TV, in front of the whole world, in front of his son. The finale starts right there. What follows is one of the most painful father-son confrontations in the history of this genre. Nolan doesn't deny anything, he explains. He tells Mark the truth about Viltrum, not the version he was raised on, where Viltrumites were explorers sharing their gifts with the universe, but the real one. Viltrum built its empire by wiping out every member of its own population it thought was too weak. Only the strongest survived, and then they started taking over other planets.
When it was over, our population was cut in half. But what emerged from the ashes was unstoppable.
Earth is next, and the argument Nolan makes to Mark, the one he keeps coming back to through the whole fight, is a version of love so warped it's hard to even understand at first. He's not asking Mark to stop caring about humans, he's telling Mark that humans are already temporary, that everyone Mark loves right now will grow old and die while Mark barely changes. That 1,000 years from now, Debbie, William, Amber, every single person he cares about, they'll all be gone, and Mark will still be here, and Nolan will still be here.
You're fighting so you can watch everyone around you die! Think, Mark! You'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet!
So why not build something that lasts? The fight is unlike anything the show had done before it. Nolan isn't trying to kill Mark at first. He's trying to physically force a decision. He drags Mark through downtown Chicago, through buildings, through crowds of people who become casualties and a lesson Mark won't accept. Someone tries to help Mark, a pilot who gets out of his plane, and Nolan grabs the man and crushes his skull in front of his own son without even looking at it. And then there's the train. Nolan grabs Mark and holds him in front of an oncoming subway train. Both of them are locked in place. The train hits them and comes apart around them. Every single passenger shredded, Mark watching it happen. Mark physically unable to move because his father is holding him there. That scene was 2 panels in the original comic. Showrunner Simon Rakioppa turned it into one of the most haunting sequences in animated TV history, and it became the moment that showed everyone what Invincible was actually going to be. Then Nolan beats Mark nearly to death. And they get to the moment everyone remembers Mark is barely there, beaten past the point where he can really fight back. And he asks his dad one question, not a plea. Not an argument, just a question. He asks what Debbie is to Nolan, not what she was, what she is right now. And Nolan says she's just a human he spent time with.
Is Mom's life worthless?
In the grand scheme of things, yes.
Debbie.
But then her face comes back to him. Then Mark as a toddler. Then 20 years of ordinary moments he never expected to matter, and something in him just stops. He can't do it. He can't kill his son. And the horror of realizing that love got in the way of the mission he spent his whole life following breaks something in him right there in front of you. He cries, and then he flies off the planet. The season ends with Mark barely alive on a mountaintop, his mom falling apart at home, and a world that just lost the person it thought was protecting it. J.K. Simmons and Stephen Yeun do this entire episode on voice alone. And people sometimes forget how incredible those performances are just because it's animated. But the Think Mark speech, where Nolan asks his son to picture a life that stretches across centuries and shows him what that does to a person, is delivered with a kind of cold, quiet hurt that makes you understand who this man is without making you feel sorry for him.
Think, Mark! What will you have after 500 years?
This is the scene that launched 1,000 memes. It's the most quoted, most clipped, most shared moment in the show's history, and it earned every single second of that. We've got one last moment, and it's not close to anything else we've talked about. November 2021, Amazon puts out the first episode of Invincible. Nobody knows what they're watching yet. The whole thing plays like a really well-made superhero story for the first 40 minutes. Hopeful, funny in places. A kid getting his powers, a world full of heroes that look like the Justice League. And then at the end of the episode, everything drops. The Guardians of the Globe show up at their headquarters. 7 of them: the Immortal, Red Rush, Martian Man, War Woman, Green Ghost, Darkwing, Aquarius. Every single one of them is a seasoned veteran. Every single one of them built from the kind of hero archetypes you'd expect to stick around for the whole run of the show. Omni-Man walks in. He's supposed to be one of them. The strongest, sure, but still one of them.
Someone must be controlling him. He would never do this.
Regardless, it's him or us.
I choose us.
And then he kills them all. He just goes through each of them one by one with his bare hands. No big drawn out battle, no moment where you're wondering how it's going to go, and the show films every second of it. Red Rush, who can move faster than anything, figures out what's happening and tries to drag Immortal out of reach. He lands real hits on Nolan. He makes him bleed, and Nolan catches his head and crushes it while Red Rush keeps punching with 2 broken hands. The first wave of people who watched this genuinely didn't know what they were seeing. Didn't know if the show meant it, didn't know if this was actually what Invincible was going to be. Because nothing in the first 40 minutes set up anything like this. That's the whole point. The premiere is built to bring you comfort. You think you know this show. You've seen this show before. Teenager gets powers from his famous superhero dad.
Guess who's finally getting his powers?
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. Through a trash bag into space at work.
The world is bright and full of people in colorful suits, and then the floor gives out and takes everything with it. What the Guardian scene does beyond just shocking you is tell you every rule this show runs by. Nobody is safe just because they're on screen. Heroism in this world has a dark side nobody's examined yet. The most powerful person in the room can be the most dangerous person in the room, and the show says all of that without explaining any of it. No voiceover, no commentary, just the images and what they make you feel. Then the show does something that still blows my mind. It ends the episode and just goes back to Mark, school, friends, normal stuff, and you're sitting there going, wait, did that actually just happen? Are we not going to talk about that? And then you watch episode 2. The conversation about that scene never really stopped, because what Invincible did in those few minutes wasn't just launch a show. It forced the whole genre to ask itself something it had been avoiding. What if we stopped protecting the audience? What if we showed them what violence actually looks like? What if we didn't clean it up? The answer, it turns out, is that people don't stop watching. They can't stop. Mortal Kombat's put the train scene in as Omni-Man's finishing move. Fan threads, video essays, and then actual mainstream crossover into other franchises entirely. That's how deep into the culture this show burned itself. And it all started here, in a room underground, with 7 heroes who had no idea what was about to happen. The Guardians Massacre is the most viewed, most rewatched, most talked about moment in Invincible history. The fight isn't even the most emotional scene in the show. The choreography isn't the most impressive thing the show's ever done. Now what makes it number 1 is simpler than that. It was the moment this show looked at you and said, we're not playing by the rules you came in with. Nothing was the same after that. And 4 seasons later, nothing has been. If you want to see more Invincible content, subscribe to our channel. The Viltrumite War is just getting started.